The afternoon sun hung low over the cracked asphalt of the old highway rest stop, turning the air thick and hazy. When the rumble of engines rolled in like distant thunder, a small group of bikers eased their motorcycles into a loose line, chrome flashing, leather jackets creaking as they dismounted. To most people passing by, they looked intimidating. Broad shoulders, weathered faces, tattoos that told stories without words. They were on a charity ride, though few would guess it by appearance alone, taking a break before the last stretch of road that would lead them back into town. Laughter moved among them, low and relaxed, as they shared water bottles and leaned against their bikes, enjoying a rare moment of stillness after miles of wind and noise. That calm shattered when a small figure burst from behind the row of vending machines near the restrooms. The girl couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, her hair tangled, her shoes mismatched, tears streaking her dusty cheeks. She ran straight toward the bikers without hesitation, as if drawn by instinct, her thin arms pumping, her chest hitching with sobs she could barely contain. She skidded to a stop in front of them, hands clenched in the fabric of her worn shirt, and cried out in a voice raw with terror, "Please! They're beating my mama!" For a moment, time seemed to pause. The laughter died instantly, replaced by a heavy silence. A few of the bikers exchanged looks, not the hardened, careless looks people expected of them, but sharp, focused ones. The tallest among them, a man with gray in his beard and eyes that had seen too much of the world, crouched down so he was level with the girl. His voice when he spoke was gentle and steady. "Hey there, sweetheart. Take a breath. Tell me where your mama is." The girl pointed with a trembling finger toward the edge of the rest stop, where an old run-down motel squatted behind a line of overgrown bushes. "In the room," she sobbed. "They're hurting her. She told me to run." The word "they" hung in the air, heavy with meaning. No one asked questions that didn't need asking. The bikers moved as one, years of riding together forging a silent understanding. A couple of them stayed with the girl, offering her a jacket to wrap around her shoulders, murmuring soft reassurances. The others mounted their bikes, engines roaring back to life, not in anger but with purpose. As they rolled toward the motel, memories stirred in each of them, of times when they themselves had been judged, feared, or dismissed, when no one had looked past the leather and steel to see the men underneath. They knew what it was like to be powerless, to need help that didn't come, and now help had come running to them in the form of a terrified child. They parked near the motel, engines cutting off one by one, the sudden quiet ringing in their ears. The building looked worse up close, peeling paint, broken curtains, a flickering sign missing half its letters. From one of the ground floor rooms came raised voices, harsh and angry, followed by a sound that made every man's jaw tighten, a zuri-duri, sharp cry of pain quickly stifled. The leader raised a hand, not to threaten but to signal calm and coordination. He knocked on the door, hard enough to be heard, but not with fury. "Open up," he called, his voice firm. "This doesn't have to get worse." There was a pause, shuffling inside, then the door cracked open. A man appeared, eyes narrowed, smelling of cheap alcohol and bad decisions. He scoffed when he saw the bikers. "Mind your own business," he sneered. "That little girl out there is our business now," the leader replied quietly. "Step aside." What followed was not chaos or violence, but something far more powerful: presence. The bikers didn't rush in swinging fists or shouting threats. They simply stood there, filling the doorway, unmovable, their calm more unsettling than rage. Another man appeared behind the first, then a third, each shrinking slightly under the weight of so many steady gazes. Inside the room, a woman sat on the floor near the bed, clutching her arm, fear etched across her face. When she saw the bikers, her eyes widened, not in fear but in disbelief. She whispered, "My daughter? She's safe," the leader said immediately. "She came to get help." Something in the room shifted then. The men who had been shouting moments before suddenly seemed small, exposed by the quiet authority standing before them. One biker had already stepped aside to call the police, his voice calm as he explained the situation, giving the address with practiced clarity. The abusive men tried to bluster, to argue, but it went nowhere. The bikers didn't need to touch them. They didn't need to threaten. They waited, and when the sirens grew closer, relief washed through the room like a cooling breeze. The police arrived quickly, taking control, separating people, asking questions. The bikers answered simply, honestly. The woman was helped to her feet, wrapped in a blanket, her shaking slowly easing. When she was reunited with her daughter outside, She dropped to her knees and held the girl so tightly it was as if she feared she might disappear. The little girl looked over her mother's shoulder at the bikers, her tear-streaked face breaking into the smallest, bravest smile. In that moment, any doubts about what kind of men they were dissolved completely. The rest stop felt different as the sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the pavement. Police lights flashed briefly, then faded as the situation settled, leaving behind a quiet that felt earned. The woman and her daughter sat together on the curb, a police officer nearby speaking gently, while an ambulance checked the woman's injuries. The bikers stood off to one side, giving space, their role nearly finished, or so they thought. The little girl slipped away from her mother's side and walked toward them again, this time slowly, shyly. She held something, small in her hand, a crumpled piece of paper with a crooked drawing of motorcycles and stick figures. She offered it to the gray-bearded leader. "I made this," she said softly, "for you, because you helped my mama." He accepted it like it was the most valuable thing he'd ever been given. His throat tightened, and for a second he couldn't speak. Around him, the other bikers looked away, blinking hard, pretending dust had gotten in their eyes. The woman approached next, her voice unsteady but strong. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "People see your bikes and your jackets and they get scared. But you saved us." "We just listened," one of the bikers replied quietly. "Your daughter knew who to run to." Those words stayed with her. They stayed with all of them. As the police arranged temporary shelter and support for the woman and her child, the bikers made sure they had contact numbers, resources, and a promise that they wouldn't be alone after today. One of the men, usually gruff and quiet, handed the girl a small pin from his jacket, simple metal emblem of their riding club. "For courage," he said. "You've got plenty, but this might remind you." The girl held it like treasure. When it was finally time to leave, the bikers mounted their motorcycles again, the engines roaring not with aggression, but with a deep, steady strength. As they pulled away, the girl waved, her mother's arm around her shoulders. The sound of the bikes faded down the highway, but what they left behind lingered far longer. Weeks later, word of what had happened spread through the town, not as a sensational headline, but as a quiet story passed from person to person. People who had once crossed the street to avoid bikers began to look twice, to reconsider. The woman found safety and support, rebuilding her life piece by piece. Her daughter thriving in school, drawing pictures of strong motorcycles and smiling faces. And somewhere down the long roads of the country, a group of bikers continued to ride, carrying with them the knowledge that sometimes the bravest thing isn't looking tough or fearless, but standing still, listening, and answering a cry for help. What they did that day didn't just stop violence. It changed how a child saw the world, how a mother believed in kindness again, and how a community learned that heroes don't always look the way you expect them to. Because when a little girl ran to them crying, they didn't turn away, and that made all the difference.